Hello everyone, welcome to another video provided to you by Madrid Software Training Solutions. This time it is a very interesting topic as soft skills for data science. This is not a topic that is much talked about, but it is so much required. It is like I feel astonished that why isn't it being talked about more often. This is so important part of being a data science, even more than having technical skills required for data science. I would say at some point you should start with developing your soft skills first, and then you should go with your technical skills. So you have to think it in the way that none of the IT field, if you think of it, or if you have seen many job descriptions for a back-end developer or a front-end developer, or for any software developer for that matter, they do not really describe soft skills or communication to be an integral part or as an eligibility criteria for you to have that job. But this is utmost requirement for having a career in data science. You have to think it in this way that if I have to develop a website, say I'm a front-end developer, I need to know that these are the features or this is the design of the website that I need. This is the color that I have to put, this is the font that I have to put, these are the paddings that I have to give, and the knowledge that I have. So someone who is giving me the requirement is giving me the design, the actual design, how the website should look like. And me having the knowledge of how to use HTML and CSS and how to exploit that data in that format, exploit that code in that format, I can make the website. None other, I mean, I can really have it on paper and can never talk to the person and still can deliver what is required with my skills. None of the communication is required. But for data science, you have to look at in this way that every single person is experiencing it for the first time in their lives. So it is a very new and emerging field. So every single industry, every single field that you can think of needs data science for their business, for their firms, for their organizations. But they need someone to actually convince them that this is what I want to do, this is how I want to develop my model, and by doing this, this can actually raise your business to that level. You have to convince them. To convince them, you have to be that presentable, you have to have that attitude, you have to have that communication skills that you need, that you can actually say someone and they feel that it is persuasive enough, that it is convincing enough. So this is how we're going to go ahead, and we'll see what are the very basic or very required soft skills are there for data science. Let's get started. So, what exactly are soft skills? So, these are the personal attributes that you need for a job. So, I wouldn't say particularly for a job, I would say for anything that you want to do professionally. So, it's like time management, the networking, how you connect with people, the relationship that you build. It is very important indeed. Many of the authors and many of the big data scientists who have developed their careers, who are speakers in many big conferences, have said that maintaining a relationship is really important with when you have multiple clients. Even when you have even if you do not really interact with clients, you just have to interact with your seniors or your juniors, your superiors and subordinates. So, teamwork is required in that sense, creative thinking, conflict resolution, and so on and so forth. Whatever you can actually think of as whatever you have been learning in moral sciences up till now is what is required in soft skills. So actually, this is the thing that you see, that how many number of interviewees have been shortlisted on the basis of what demand, on the basis of skills. So this is typically for non-technical skills. You have to be a good communication or the presenter, you have to have an effective communication. Then you have to know the knowledge of business, and we'll see so on and so forth what else is required in these soft skills. But this is how the demand goes in terms of the interviews that take place in for the data science career. So it is not very specific to being a data scientist. It can go, and it does go, for being someone who is in the profile of business intelligence, business analysis, data analysis, and actually data engineer for that matter. If you think that being a data engineer just needs you to sit behind your laptop, behind your computer screens, and then code, whatever you know is not enough. Just is simply not enough when you are starting your career in data science profile at this point of time. Maybe down the line, who knows, that having after 5 to 6 years or even a decade, you will be data engineers maybe, or data scientists maybe, be treated as software developers are treated today. But that is way down the line, and I actually do not see this happening. Every single time you have so many new implications, so many new things that you want to do in data science that are emerging in terms of AI as well. If you have developed a new model, so you have to convince your audience to that. If they haven't seen that model, they would not be convinced if you do not have that effective presentation or communication in your way. So, moving ahead, first soft skill that you require for being in data science is known as skepticism. So you have to be skeptical or critical about whatever you see. So whatever you see in terms of the data that you see, you have to question every single thing. Why is this data in such format? Why are only these features available for this particular data set? What else can be seen? What, or whether it is even correct or not. So where else can I actually look for the verification of the data set, basically the validation of what you are working with? If you question every single thing, it is more likely that you will actually get to know the problems or the solutions to the problems that were not there and that might arise in the coming future that you might not see. But if you solve them ahead of the time, that is basically being optimistic and seeing, having a far-sightedness. The problems that you might find in down the line or in the near future, you were skeptical about them, you were critical about them, you questioned every single thing, and thus you were able to solve them beforehand. So it is required that you have critical thinking for your database, the data set, or even, and not, it just does not really apply to the data, but the model that you are trying to use. So moving ahead, perseverance. As Steve Jobs have said, I'm convinced that half of what separates the successful entrepreneurs from the non-successful ones is pure perseverance. So basically, you have to be consistent. You this is It is said that having talent is one thing, but efforts mean twice as much. So if you are constantly behind something, that will actually be fruitful. You have to constantly work on your single data, or for a model for that matter. If you have gone down the line that something can be solved by something is a classification problem, for example. So you have to think of multiple algorithms that can be applied to it. So there can be logistic regression for the very start, I would say. And then you go ahead with maybe decision tree. Then you go ahead with maybe with random forest as well. So there are multiple classification models that you can use. And there can be a situation that none of them works for you and you have to build up a new one for yourself. You cannot leave anything on a single thread, on one single point, right? You have to work your way through it. So perseverance is what makes all the difference. intellectual curiosity. You have to be curious. Being a scientist and not being curious about it does not go away. So basically, if you do not have a scientist and curiosity in one single sentence, you are missing something. So that is how it is perceived basically. So as Albert Einstein himself said, I'm neither clever nor especially gifted. I'm only very, very curious. If you are curious about something, you will go digging that. You will go dig deeper and deeper into that. You will torture your data set. You will exploit your data set. And as it is said, if you torture your data set enough, it will tell you anything. So that constitutes to having in every each and every solution to everything that you might have a question mark on. Why is this data like this? Where else was the source? Why only these features again? And so on and so forth. You have to have that curiosity basically. If you're not curious enough about your data set or your problem, please pick a new problem. Do not go that way if you're not interested or having your anxiety level risen by that particular problem. So once now you are being curious enough, you are being critical enough, you know many problems are there with your data set. You know many problems are there with that particular problem. You have to go solving it. You cannot just have these problems and post it somewhere and go ahead. So you have to create, being a scientist, you have to give the solutions for them as well. So there is a typical way how you go ahead and solve problems. And I would say this go for every single thing, not just for something technical. So there is a particular way how you solve your problems. You have to develop that thinking or the way how your mind works when you see a problem. So that is all something that you will get to know once you have a particular course when you how do you want to handle your soft skills. So you have to define your problem, you have to brainstorm your solutions, you have to discuss through various, you have to go ahead with every single solution whatever is there, what are the possibilities, and then you go ahead, you pick a solution whatever seems the most convincing enough at that particular point. And maybe that was convincing enough but does not really give you a solution, you go ahead to another solution, and so on and so forth, the cycle goes on. You have to be creative enough, as the CEO of Kaggle himself said this, that the only way that you can solve or you get the best out of the Kaggle solutions are the handcrafted solutions, feature engineering, or the algorithms. So you have to really, really be creative how you can use your particular ways. So there cannot be one single way of manipulating your data. There cannot be one single way of, let's say, filling the missing values. There can be multiple ways. So the basic ways that we see is to fill it with the forward value or the backward value, to fill it with the mean, to fill it with the median, and so on and so forth. But there can be as many possible solution to that one single question mark cell that is there in your data set, as much as you can think about it. So there you can, so that really depends on how you have exploited your data set, how much information do you want to get out of your data set. That is how you need to think about it. You have to be creative enough. There cannot be a solution written or a code written for every single algorithm that you have been thinking, or every single problem that you have been thinking. If that would have been the case, we wouldn't be pursuing data science, or every single thing would have been automated by now. So we are in the creating stage, or the beginning stage of having something as good as artificial intelligence and data science into our lives. So you have to be creative for now, at least. Having business acumen is, I would say, the most important one. So you need to have the ability or understanding of business. So there are cases, obviously, if you have been a science student, basically, you might not have gone into commerce that much, right? So it might not be the case that you have learned about economics or finance or accounts that much. So you do not really need to go into the accounts of that or the finances of that, but you need to have a deeper understanding of how the business is working. Once you have that understanding, you will be able to think on it more. So it is, again, it is different than being in the IT field, in the format that if you are a developer and if you are preparing for something, you get the problems like there are competitive exams or competitive problems that you solve, and solving them and solving them requires a typical understanding of solution. For example, there is a code that you have to write to sort some values in a particular format, let's say ascending order, and you have to get the second highest or the second lowest value from the whole array. So that is a very typical problem, but how do you use that in your particular business? That is what you need to understand. You just do not have to think in the way that this is the problem and this is how I code my solution to that, and I optimize my solution to have that particular memory consumption and using minimal variables and so on. Yes, you have to think that way, but that comes second to the point that I'm discussing as business acumen. So you have to know the financial needs to the business. You maybe require building that model needs a GPU. So you need to enroll into some servers as GCP or AWS for that matter. So you need to know whether that particular problem that you are solving is enough or is actually suitable for that business or not. You have to think in that way, and only when you think like that, you will be able to convince the managers or the superiors that are there who are actually investing in that business to invest in you, to invest in your model. If you do not have the business understanding, they will definitely be disappointed that the person does not even know our business or does not even care about what do we do. He or she just only cares about being providing something fancy or getting to work on fancy models. So you do not need that. You do not want them to think like that, right? You want them to be convinced that you care for the business as much as they do. That's why you need to know the business. You need to understand or go dive deeper into their business. You have to dip yourself into their business, knowing what are the requirements. And that's how you have that leadership thing, that you actually lead them to the way that they want to go ahead with their business, right? And that is what basically is the whole point of using data science or artificial intelligence for that matter in your business, right? To automate things, to lead them to automate things. So this is how you want to think. And moving ahead, we have the very last is storytelling or the effective communication. So basically, you know the business, you have got your data set, you know your model, you have been curious enough to actually exploit your models and create a new model altogether. So you have done all of that. You were persistent enough that you have changed every single thing. Now, having given all of that time, having given all of your energy and efforts into that, how do you convince your superiors again, your leaders, that this is the way or this is what I have done? These are the insights that I have found, and this is the way to actually go ahead with your business. This is the way that you can raise your business to a level that it hadn't been before. So this is why you need a storytelling. So, and basically, an effective story, or I would say a nice story for a movie, for example, is when you have a premise. So it has to be intriguing enough that you are curious to know what happens next in the movie, what happens next in the story. And then you have to create a twist into that, maybe telling that these were the processes or what you have taken. And then you have a climax. Then you actually enlighten every single person who is there or who is listening to you that yes, this is how you have actually flipped around or turned around whatever was there, whatever was in the premise, and this is the solution to that. So you have to actually build that thing or build that skill to have that storytelling. So you have to engage every single person in your audience to know that actually what you are saying is interesting enough and it is going somewhere deep down, or maybe in the future, in the next 5 minutes that you are about to complete your story, there will be a climax. There is something that they should be able to, basically they should be able to be convinced that yes, this is what we want to do. You have to raise their anxiety level at the very end, after you are done with your climax. So this is how we go ahead with storytelling, and every single thing, all of this will be taught to you basically in a course as soft skills. And I hope it was good enough for you, because this is the most required thing in the data science, and it is really really sad that nobody else is talking about this. So this is what actually makes the difference, or will make a difference, being having someone who has all the technical knowledge, and someone who is still learning but is able to communicate enough and communicate effectively. So there you go. I hope it was actually something that you felt, and you will go ahead and please think about it. So we'll meet you in the next slides or in the next videos. So keep watching. Thank you so much. Bye.